They destroyed my garden in one afternoon. 5 years of love, sweat, and memories torn up like weeds. The HOA president thought he'd won by turning my sanctuary into scarred earth. He had no idea I was about to turn his precious parking lot into my private orchard. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching, also like and subscribe for more stories. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning like a slap in the face. My hands shook as I read the cold words: violation notice, immediate action required. After 30 years of loving care, my ranch garden was being called a neighborhood eyesore. The Willowbrook Estates HOA wanted me to destroy it in 14 days or pay $500 daily fines. I'm Sarah Chen, 62 years old. When my husband David died 5 years ago, this garden saved my life. Every morning I'd walk through the rows of tomatoes and herbs, talking to the plants like old friends. The neighbors used to wave and ask for my growing secrets. Kids would peek through the fence at my giant sunflowers. But that was before Marcus Blackwood became HOA president. Marcus moved here 8 months ago with his BMW and superiority complex. Within weeks of taking over, violation notices flew like confetti. Too many cars in driveways. Wrong paint colors. My beautiful garden was his latest target. I marched to the community center where Marcus sat behind his laptop, silver hair perfect, expensive suit gleaming. "Mrs. Chen," he said without looking up, "I assume you got our letter. You mean this threat to destroy everything I've built? Your vegetable garden violates Section 12.3. No agricultural activities permitted." Agricultural activities? It's a garden. I grow food for my family. His pale eyes were cold as winter. "Property values have risen 12% since I took office. We cannot allow individual preferences to undermine our investment. This isn't about property values. You just want to control everything. The covenant is clear. You have 13 days. That night I stared out at my moonlit garden, hearing David's voice in the wind. "Don't let them win, Sarah." I tried reasoning with other board members. Patricia Henley wrung her hands apologetically. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but Marcus has the votes. He says gardens attract pests and lower property values." "Have you seen any pests? Have values actually dropped?" "It's not about reality," she whispered. "Marcus says buyers want pristine lawns, not vegetable patches." I spent $2,000 on a lawyer, only to learn the HOA was technically right. I organized a petition going door to door. Many neighbors signed, sharing their own stories of Marcus's tyranny. The Pattersons were fined for sidewalk chalk. The Johnsons' basketball hoop was 6 inches too close to the street. Mr. Rodriguez's roses grew 2 inches over the height limit. But petitions don't override legal documents. On day 13, I stood in my garden at sunrise, saying goodbye to each plant. Tears streamed down my face as I imagined bulldozers destroying this sanctuary. That afternoon, Marcus appeared with 2 workers. "Mrs. Chin, your deadline expires tomorrow. These men will handle removal if you prefer. You can't just tear up someone's garden." Section 15.2 allows the HOA to remedy violations at the owner's expense. I watched in horror as they ripped up my plants, tossing 5 years of cultivation into a dumpster. Every torn root felt like a piece of my heart breaking. The 12-foot sunflowers crashed down with sounds like breaking bones. "Please," I begged. "Let me harvest what's ready. People could use this food." "Absolutely not. Every trace must be removed." By evening my garden was gone. Only scarred earth remained, barren as the moon's surface. I cried myself to sleep clutching David's old gardening gloves. But grief transforms when you've been pushed too far. The next morning I woke up angry. Not sad angry, but cold, calculating, strategic angry. Marcus had made a mistake assuming I'd just fade away. He didn't know that surviving 62 years teaches you about fighting back. I researched everything about Marcus and the HOA. What I found was fascinating. Marcus won with only 18 votes out of 247 households. Most residents didn't know there was an election. The HOA's financial records showed expensive beautification contracts with Greenleaf Enterprises, owned by Marcus's brother-in-law. But the real goldmine was the community parking lot. The large central parking area was technically common property belonging to all residents. It stayed mostly empty except during the annual block party. Hidden in the 847-page covenant was Section 23.7. Residents may petition for alternative uses of common areas, subject to board approval and community benefit standards. I had found my weapon. I submitted a petition for a community wellness garden on part of the parking lot. Detailed plans included raised beds, composting, and shared harvesting. I cited studies showing community gardens reduce stress and increase property values. Marcus rejected it within hours. Parking lot must remain for vehicle storage. I was counting on that rejection. Next, I petitioned for a community orchard, apple, cherry, and pear trees providing spring blossoms, summer shade, and autumn color. Purely ornamental benefits enhancing neighborhood aesthetics. Marcus rejected this too, claiming trees would interfere with parking despite the lot being rarely 10% occupied. I submitted more petitions: meditation garden, exercise trail, native plant sanctuary. All rejected. By the fifth rejection, residents were paying attention. Marcus looked unreasonable and controlling. People started asking questions. Why won't he let us improve the empty lot? What's wrong with fruit trees? Isn't the HOA supposed to represent residents? I organized coffee meetings, shared research about Marcus's conflicts, explained how HOAs should work. People got angry, not just at Marcus but at the system letting one person accumulate unchecked power. The breakthrough came when I discovered Marcus's violation. Property records showed he'd installed a hot tub without architectural review, violating Section 8.4, the same covenant used to destroy my garden. I had photographs. I had documentation. I had him. Instead of filing a complaint, I organized a special HOA meeting and invited everyone. I spent my own money on professional flyers and door-to-door invitations, even hired babysitters so parents could attend. Nearly 200 residents showed up, more than any meeting in community history. Neighbors, I began, hands steady despite my racing heart. 8 months ago, you elected a president promising to maintain community standards. But what standards are we maintaining? I displayed before and after photos of my garden. Vibrant productivity versus barren scar. This garden fed families, taught children, brought neighbors together. It was destroyed because one person decided control mattered more than community. The room was silent but electric. But while Marcus destroyed my garden for violating standards, he violated those same standards himself. I showed photos of his unpermitted hot tub alongside architectural review requirements he'd ignored. The same man who fined me $500 daily for tomatoes installed a hot tub without following his own rules. The room erupted. Shouting, demands for answers, calls for resignation. Furthermore, our president approved $75,000 in landscaping contracts with his brother-in-law's company, without competitive bidding. More outrage. Tonight, I propose we take back our community. I outline the plan: vote no confidence in Marcus, elect a transparent board, establish a community orchard as an exercise of our collective property rights. The vote was overwhelming: 187 to remove Marcus, only 12 to keep him. Marcus wasn't finished. You can't vote me out. The covenant requires formal impeachment. He was right. The legal process would take months. That's when I played my final card. You could resign voluntarily, Marcus. Or I could file complaints about your unpermitted hot tub, financial conflicts, and violation of Covenant Section 4.1. Board members must act for community benefit, not family profit. I smiled. I've contacted the state attorney general about HOA governance violations. They're very interested in boards approving contracts with relatives. Marcus went pale. The threat of investigation was too much. Fine. I resign. But this isn't over. He stormed out, leaving neighbors finally free to make their own decisions. The next morning I stood in the parking lot with measuring tape, designing the orchard. Within a week, volunteers prepared soil. Within a month, we planted our first fruit trees. The orchard became everything I'd hoped. Families walked among young trees discussing varieties they'd try. Children helped water and weed, learning about plants and seasons. Elderly residents sat on our benches, enjoying shade and community purpose. The most satisfying moment came 6 months later. I was pruning apple trees when Marcus's car pulled up. He looked older, defeated. Neighborhood gossip said he'd moved to a downtown condo. Hello, Sarah. Marcus. I kept pruning without looking directly at him. I wanted to see what you'd done. Beautiful, isn't it? These trees will provide fruit for decades. Children love learning horticulture. He studied the neat rows, walking paths, the herb garden that had grown organically around the orchard. I suppose you think you've won. I set down my shears and met his eyes. Marcus, this was never about winning. It was about building something good instead of just tearing down. Your problem wasn't wanting high standards. You thought standards meant control instead of community. He nodded slowly. Your garden was beautiful. I knew that. But I was so focused on rules I forgot why they should exist. Rules should protect what matters, not destroy it. I'm sorry, Sarah. About your garden. The first genuine thing he'd said in months. Thank you. That means something. After he left, I stood among the fruit trees thinking about gardens and communities and how loss can transform into something better. My original garden was gone, but this orchard would feed the neighborhood for generations. The apple trees showed small buds. Soon they'd bear fruit children would pick and eat, creating lifelong memories. Cherry trees would bloom each spring in pink and white petals. Pear trees would provide autumn shade for families. I thought about David, how he'd have loved this space. He always said the best revenge was living well and helping others do the same. As sunset painted Willowbrook Estates golden, I walked through the orchard checking each tree. The new board approved expansion plans for next year, berry bushes and a greenhouse for seedlings. Tomorrow I'd prepare my backyard for a new garden. The revised covenant now explicitly allowed residential vegetables if well maintained. I'd grow tomatoes again. Basil, peppers, giant sunflowers the Johnson kids loved. But I'd also tend the community orchard, nurturing something belonging to everyone and no one, something outlasting all of us. Marcus wanted to control community by destroying what people loved. Instead, he taught us that communities grow through planting seeds and trusting them to flourish, not through rules and restrictions. The orchard proved that sometimes the most beautiful revenge is refusing to let small minds make the world smaller. I turned their parking lot into a private orchard, private in the sense of personal investment and community ownership, the deep satisfaction of growing beauty where someone tried planting only control and fear. Every apple, cherry, and pear would remind us that some things are too important for bureaucrats to control. The garden was destroyed, but the gardener survived. That made all the difference.